He wasn't supposed to wait this long. Before we begin, tell me, where are you watching from tonight? Somewhere warm, I hope. Because out here, the cold settles into your bones and stays. There's a road just outside a decommissioned Marine base in northern Montana, the kind of place most maps forget, where the wind moves low and steady across open ground, and the sky feels too wide for comfort. At the edge of a rusted chain-link gate, beneath a flickering security light that hasn't been fixed in years, a dog lies curled into himself, as if trying to hold on to what little warmth he has left. His coat, once a deep sable black and tan, is now dulled by time, streaked with gray along his muzzle and spine. Snow gathers quietly on his back, not enough to wake him, just enough to remind the world he's still there. People in town know him. They pass by in pickup trucks with fogged windows and coffee cups in hand, slowing down just a little as they drive past, not out of curiosity anymore, but habit. That dog's still there, they say, like it's a landmark, like it's always been that way. Some call him a stray. Others say he's stubborn. A few think he's lost his mind. But none of them know the truth. Because every morning, before the sun stretches over the horizon and paints the frost in pale gold, he lifts his head and looks toward that gate. Not randomly, not hopefully, precisely, as if expecting someone, as if time itself is just something to wait through. Around his neck hangs an old collar, leather cracked, edges worn soft by years of weather. Attached to it is a small metal tag, dulled and scratched, the engraving nearly erased by wind and snow and silence. But if you get close enough, closer than most people ever bother to, you can still make out a name. Ethan Cole. The dog doesn't bark. He doesn't wander. He doesn't chase the occasional deer that cuts across the field at dawn. He stays, always within a few feet of that same spot, like an invisible line has been drawn in the dirt, one he refuses to cross. And when the wind shifts just right, carrying scents from miles away, his ears lift slightly, just for a second, before settling back down again. Waiting. Always waiting. Nights here drop below 20 degrees, sometimes lower, the kind of cold that makes engines struggle and breath turn to mist the second it leaves your lips. Yet somehow, he endures it, curled against the frozen ground, as if the cold itself is something he's already accepted, as if leaving would be worse. No one remembers when he first showed up. Some say it's been 3 years. Others swear it's longer. Time blurs in places like this. Seasons come and go, snow melts into mud, mud dries into dust, and still, he remains. Not for food, not for shelter, but for something no one else can see. And maybe that's the part that unsettles people the most. Because deep down, even if they don't say it out loud, they feel it. This isn't just a dog that stayed. This is a dog that was told to. The command had been simple. Stay. It was spoken in a voice that did not tremble, a voice trained by years of discipline, of structure, of trust built one mission at a time. And the dog had obeyed, not because he was trained to, but because he believed in the man who said it. Years earlier, before the gate rusted and the lights began to flicker, this place had been alive with motion, engines humming, boots striking gravel in steady rhythm, voices carrying through the crisp morning air. Back then, Rex was not just another dog. He was a Marine canine, partnered with Staff Sergeant Ethan Cole, a man known for his quiet precision and the kind of calm that made others stand a little straighter when he walked into a room. Ethan was not loud, not the type to fill silence with unnecessary words, but when he spoke, it carried weight. Rex learned that early. He learned the difference between commands given out of habit and commands given with meaning. And when Ethan said stay, it was never just about the moment. It was a promise that he would come back. Their days had been measured in routine. 5-mile runs before sunrise, the cold biting at their lungs as they moved in perfect rhythm, breath, and stride aligned. Training drills that tested not just obedience, but trust. Rex could read Ethan without words, the slight shift in posture, the subtle tightening of a hand, the pause that meant wait, the glance that meant go. It was not training anymore. It was understanding. The kind that only forms when two lives depend on each other more than they depend on anything else. There had been one morning, not long before everything changed, when the air felt different. Heavier. The sky hung low, clouds stretching thin across the horizon like something unfinished. Ethan had crouched beside Rex near the transport vehicles, adjusting the worn leather collar with steady hands. The metal tag caught the early light for just a second before settling back against the dog's chest. Ethan's fingers lingered there, longer than usual. Not hesitation. Not fear. Just something unspoken. "You stay sharp for me," he had said quietly, his voice low enough that it almost disappeared into the wind. Rex had held his gaze, ears forward, body still, absorbing not just the sound, but the meaning beneath it. Then came the movement, the call to load up, the hum of engines coming alive. Ethan stood, gave a single nod, and stepped away. Rex did not follow. He did not need to. He knew the pattern. Missions always ended the same way. Departure. Absence. Return. That was the order of things. That was the truth he had been taught to trust. But time has a way of bending truth into something else when no one is there to explain the change. Days passed. Then weeks. The base shifted. New faces came and went. Schedules changed. The rhythm broke. And still, Rex waited. At first, it was near the barracks, pacing in short lines, watching every vehicle that pulled through the gates, ears lifting at the sound of boots that were not his. Then closer to the road. Then finally, right here. The gate. The last place he had seen Ethan disappear beyond. The place where the promise had been left unfinished. Others tried, at first. A young corporal left out food in a metal bowl. A mechanic whistled softly, crouching low, trying to coax him closer. Even a handler from another unit approached with careful steps and familiar commands. Rex did not respond. Not because he could not, but because none of them were the one he was waiting for. The command had not changed. The meaning had not faded. Stay did not mean for a while. It did not mean until it was inconvenient. It meant until he came back. And so the dog remained. Through every passing season, through every silent morning and every freezing night, holding on to a single moment stretched across years, as if somewhere, just beyond the edge of time, a man named Ethan Cole was still walking back toward him. Time does not announce itself when it changes a place. It does it quietly, in small ways that most people never notice. The paint on the guard post begins to peel. The chain on the gate sags just a little lower. The sound of engines fades until the silence feels permanent. And somewhere in between all of that, the world moves on without asking who it leaves behind. The base closed in stages, not all at once. First, the training units were reassigned. Then the maintenance crews packed up their tools, one truck at a time, until the garages stood empty, echoing with nothing but wind. The last to leave were the officers, their departures marked by brief conversations and paperwork that meant everything to them and nothing to the dog watching from a distance. Rex did not understand orders written on paper. He understood patterns. And this pattern felt wrong. Vehicles left, but none returned. Boots walked out, but no familiar scent came back through the gate. Still, he stayed. The town nearby adapted faster than the base did. A diner on the corner changed its sign from open 24 hours to closed Mondays. A gas station reduced its hours, then its staff, then its lights. People spoke about the base in past tense, like something that had already settled into memory. But every now and then, someone would bring up the dog. "He is still out there," they would say, stirring coffee that had gone cold. Same spot. There was a woman named Claire Jensen who worked the early shift at that diner. Mid-40s, quiet, the kind of person who noticed things others overlooked. She began leaving scraps near the edge of the road. Not too close, never trying to force anything. At first, the food would sit untouched for hours, until hunger eventually won over caution. Rex would approach slowly, take what he needed, then return to his place by the gate. No wagging tail. No sign of gratitude. Just survival, measured and precise. Claire watched this pattern for weeks. One morning, before the sun had fully risen, she stepped out of her truck and walked. A few feet closer than usual. The air was sharp, somewhere around 15 degrees, her breath visible in the dim light. Rex lifted his head, but did not move. His eyes followed her, steady, unreadable. "You can come with me, you know," she said softly, her voice careful, like she was speaking into something fragile. "Warm place. Food every day." The words hung in the air, drifting like the steam from her coffee. Rex did not respond. Not with movement. Not with sound. Just that same stillness, as if the idea itself did not fit into the world he understood. Claire crouched slightly, extending a hand, not expecting him to take it, just offering the possibility. For a moment, it seemed like he might. His ears shifted forward, his body tensing just enough to suggest thought. Then the wind changed direction, carrying a distant scent across the open land. Something faint, something old. Rex's head turned instantly back toward the gate. The moment passed. Claire lowered her hand slowly, nodding to herself more than to him. "All right," she murmured. "You are waiting for someone." She did not ask who. She did not need to. Some things reveal themselves without explanation. From that day on, she stopped trying to take him away. Instead, she adjusted her routine. Food placed a little closer to the gate. Water refreshed before it froze solid. Small acts, repeated daily, not to change his purpose, but to support it. And through it all, Rex remained exactly where he had always been, as if the world could shift and fall apart around him, and it would not matter, because the only thing that mattered had not yet returned. Winter does not arrive all at once in Montana. It creeps in, first through the air, then through the ground, until even silence feels heavier. The nights grow longer, stretching past 16 hours, and the sky settles into a pale gray that never quite lifts. Frost gathers on every surface, clinging to metal, to wood, to fur. And still, at the edge of that forgotten gate, Rex remains. His movements have slowed over the years, not from hesitation, but from time itself. When he stands now, it is careful, measured, as if each step is something he considers before taking. His joints stiffen in the cold, his breath coming out in soft, visible clouds that fade quickly into the wind. But his eyes have not changed. They still carry that same fixed direction, that same quiet certainty, as if the world beyond the gate is not empty, but simply delayed. Claire notices it more with each passing day. The way he adjusts his position just before dawn, turning slightly to face the road, as if he knows the exact moment light will break. The way his ears lift at distant sounds no one else hears, then settle again when they pass. It is not random. It is not instinct alone. It is memory, repeating itself, holding on to something that refuses to fade. One evening, as the temperature drops below 10 degrees, Claire stays longer than usual. She leaves her truck running, heater humming softly, the yellow glow of the headlights cutting through the thin veil of falling snow. In the passenger seat sits an old wool blanket, folded neatly, something she brought without fully deciding why. She steps out, boots crunching against frozen gravel, and walks slowly toward him. "It is too cold for this," she says, her voice softer than the wind. Rex does not move. She kneels this time, closer than she ever has before, placing the blanket gently on the ground between them. Not over him. Not forcing. Just offering. For a moment, nothing happens. The snow continues to fall in thin, steady lines, collecting on her shoulders, on his back, on the space between them. Then, slowly, Rex lowers himself onto the blanket. Not fully. Just enough that part of his body rests on it, as if accepting only what he needs, nothing more. Claire exhales quietly, a small release she did not realize she was holding. "That is all right," she murmurs. "You do it your way." She sits there for a while, not reaching, not speaking further, just sharing the space. The base behind him stands silent, its building's dark outlines against the fading light, windows empty, doors closed. It looks like something abandoned. But for Rex, it is not empty. It is unfinished. As the evening deepens, a distant sound drifts across the land. Not loud, not immediate, just the faint hum of an engine miles away, carried by the wind in fragments. Rex's head lifts instantly. His ears stand tall, sharper than they have been all day. His body shifts forward, tension returning to muscles that moments ago seemed too tired to move. Claire hears it too, but to her it is just another vehicle on a distant road, another sound among many. To Rex, it is something else. Something familiar enough to stir what time could not erase. He stands now, fully, stepping off the blanket, snow falling from his coat in soft, silent slides. His gaze locks onto the road beyond the gate, unblinking, unwavering. The engine sound fades again, swallowed by distance, leaving only the wind behind. But Rex does not lie back down. Not this time. He remains standing, as if something inside him has shifted, not broken, not changed, but awakened. Claire watches him carefully, her breath catching in the cold air. "You heard something," she whispers, more to herself than to him. Rex does not turn. He does not need to, because for the first time in a long time, the waiting no longer feels like an ending. It feels like something is finally beginning to return. The night does not give answers easily. It stretches itself thin across the land, wrapping everything in a quiet that feels almost deliberate, as if it is waiting too. Rex stands unmoving at the gate, his body angled toward the road, every line of him alert in a way that has not been seen in years. The wind brushes past him, cold and steady, carrying nothing now but the faint echo of what might have been. Yet something inside him refuses to settle back into stillness. Claire remains a few steps behind, her hands tucked into the pockets of her coat, watching him with a kind of patience she did not know she had. Minutes pass, then more. The engine sound does not return. The road stays empty, stretching into darkness without interruption. Slowly, the tension in Rex's stance softens, not into defeat, but into something quieter, something that feels like understanding. He lowers himself back onto the ground, though not fully curled this time, his head still raised, eyes fixed forward as if holding onto the possibility just a little longer. Claire exhales, a soft cloud of breath dissolving into the cold air. Maybe tomorrow, she says gently, though she does not know why she says it. Maybe for him, maybe for herself. The next morning arrives with a pale light that barely warms the horizon. Frost coats the ground in a thin, brittle layer that cracks under every step. Claire returns earlier than usual, a thermos in one hand, a small paper bag in the other. She expects to see him lying where she left him. Instead, she finds him already standing. Not restless, not pacing, just standing, as if the night had not worn him down the way it should have. As if something has shifted permanently. She pauses by her truck, watching him for a moment before approaching. "You are up early," she says softly. Rex does not turn. His attention remains on the road. But there is a subtle change now, something almost imperceptible unless you have been watching as long as she has. His ears move more often, catching fragments of sound carried across miles. His posture holds a quiet readiness, like a door that has been closed for years but is now slightly open. Claire sets the food down closer than before, just a few feet from where he stands. This time, he does not wait as long. He steps forward, eats quickly, then returns to his place without hesitation. Efficient, focused, as if even the act of eating is something to be done between moments of waiting, not instead of them. Days pass like this, each one nearly identical, yet somehow different. The sky shifts from gray to pale blue and back again. The temperature rises a few degrees, then falls. Trucks pass in the distance, their sounds rolling across the open land like distant thunder. Most of them mean nothing. But every now and then, one catches Rex's attention just long enough to make him stand a little straighter, to lean forward just a fraction more, before settling again. Claire begins to notice a pattern she cannot explain. It is not every sound, not every movement, only certain ones. As if Rex is not just listening, but remembering, comparing each passing moment to something stored deep inside him. One afternoon, as the sun dips low and casts long shadows across the empty base, a different sound reaches them. Not louder, not closer, just different. A deeper engine, steady, consistent, approaching from far down the road that curves toward the gate. Rex's head lifts instantly. His ears lock forward, sharper than before. His body shifts, weight moving onto his front paws, ready, waiting, but not moving yet. Claire hears it too, this time clearly. She turns, narrowing her eyes toward the horizon where a small shape begins to form against the fading light. A vehicle, still distant, still indistinct, but coming this way. Rex does not blink. He does not breathe as heavily. He simply watches, as if every second now carries more meaning than all the years before it. And for the first time since she has known him, Claire feels it too. Not certainty, not even hope, just a quiet, undeniable sense that whatever this is, it is not like the others. The vehicle does not rush. It moves steadily, tires pressing against the frozen gravel with a low, deliberate crunch that carries across the open land long before it reaches the gate. The sound is deeper than the others, not hurried, not careless, but measured, like it belongs exactly where it is going. Rex stands perfectly still, every muscle aligned with the direction of that sound, his eyes fixed on the shape that slowly grows larger against the fading light. Claire steps closer without realizing it, her boots quiet against the ground, her breath shallow now, as if speaking might somehow break whatever is unfolding. The truck comes into view fully at last, an older model, dusted with miles, its paint dulled by time and weather. It slows as it approaches the bend in the road, then continues forward until it is only a few dozen yards from the gate. The engine hum lowers, softens, then idles. For a moment, nothing happens. The world seems to hold itself in place, the wind easing, the snow pausing mid-fall, as if even nature is waiting to see what comes next. Rex does not move forward. Not yet. His ears remain locked, his body angled slightly ahead, but his paws stay planted in the same worn patch of ground he has claimed for years. It is not hesitation. It is certainty held in restraint. The driver's side door opens slowly, the sound of metal shifting in the cold air echoing louder than it should. A man steps out, careful, steady, one hand bracing against the door before letting go. He is taller than average, broad-shouldered though leaner than he once might have been, his movements deliberate, as if each step is something he measures before committing to it. He wears a heavy coat, dark against the pale landscape, and a knit cap pulled low over his head. For a second, he just stands there, looking at the gate, at the empty base beyond it, at the place that once held a life he has not seen in years. Claire watches him, something tightening in her chest that she cannot explain. There is nothing dramatic about him. No urgency, no visible emotion, just a stillness that feels familiar, even to someone who has never met him. The man takes a step forward, then another. The gravel shifts under his boots, each sound clear in the quiet air. Rex's body responds, not with movement, but with something deeper. His posture changes almost imperceptibly, his head lowering just slightly, his tail still, his focus sharpening into something that is no longer just waiting. It is knowing. The man reaches the edge of the gate and stops. His eyes lift slowly, scanning the area, passing over the rusted fence, the empty buildings, the snow-covered ground. Then they find the dog. Time does not rush this moment. It stretches, lengthens, as if both of them need it to. The man's expression shifts, not dramatically, not all at once, but in layers, recognition building where uncertainty once sat. His lips part slightly, as if a word is forming before he is ready to say it. Rex takes one step forward. Just one. Enough to close the smallest distance. Enough to confirm what his instincts have already told him. The man exhales, a sound barely louder than the wind. His voice, when it comes, is quiet, almost lost in the cold air. Rex. It is not a command. It is not a call. It is a memory spoken aloud. And for the first time in years, the space between them is no longer filled with waiting. The name does not echo. It settles. It lands in the cold air with a weight that time cannot erase. And for a moment, nothing else moves. Rex stands there, just beyond the gate, his body still, but no longer rigid. Something inside him shifts, not sudden, not explosive, but deep, like a door opening after years of being closed. His ears lower slightly, not in fear, not in submission, but in recognition. The man takes another step forward, slower now, as if afraid that moving too quickly might break whatever fragile thread has just been restored between them. Up close, the years are more visible on him. Faint lines along his face, a heaviness in his posture, a quiet wear in his eyes that was not there before. But the way he looks at the dog has not changed. That same steady focus, that same unspoken connection. You stayed, he says softly, his voice barely above a breath. It is not a question. It is not surprise. It is something closer to understanding, as if he already knew the answer long before he arrived. Rex takes another step, then another, each one measured, deliberate, closing the distance that has stretched across years instead of yards. His tail does not wag wildly. There is no frantic energy, no burst of excitement. Just a quiet, unwavering movement forward, as if this is not a reunion, but a continuation of something that was never truly broken. Claire watches from behind, her hand unconsciously rising to cover her mouth, her breath catching in a way she cannot control. She has seen this dog in every condition, in cold, in hunger, in silence. But she has never seen him like this. Not alive, not present. The man lowers himself carefully, one knee bending toward the ground, his balance steady but cautious. He does not reach out immediately. He waits. The space between them closes until Rex is only a few feet away. Then one. Then none. Rex stops just in front of him, close enough to feel the warmth of his breath, close enough to see the smallest details that memory has held onto all this time. The man lifts his hand slowly, offering it forward, palm open, fingers relaxed. Rex leans in, not quickly, not urgently, but with a quiet certainty. His nose brushes against the man's hand, inhaling, searching, confirming. The scent is older now, layered with time, with distance, with things Rex does not understand. But beneath all of it, there is something unchanged, something familiar, something his memory never let go of. The man's hand trembles just slightly as it rests against Rex's head, fingers pressing gently into the thick fur that has grown rougher over the years. "I came back," he whispers, the words breaking just enough to reveal the truth behind them. Rex does not bark. He does not whine. He simply leans in closer, his body pressing forward, closing whatever space remains, as if making sure this time there is no distance left at all. The wind moves around them again, soft, steady, carrying away the years that no longer matter. And in that quiet space, without urgency, without noise, two lives find each other exactly where they were always meant to be. The moment does not rush forward. It lingers, stretching quietly as if both of them understand that nothing here needs to be hurried anymore. Rex stays close, his body leaning into Ethan's touch, not with urgency, but with something deeper, something that feels like relief without needing to show it. Ethan's hand moves slowly along the dog's neck, fingers tracing the worn leather collar, stopping when they reach the metal tag. He turns it gently, just enough to catch what little light remains in the fading afternoon. The letters are nearly gone, softened by years of wind and snow, but he does not need to read them. He already knows what is there. His thumb presses lightly against the surface, as if grounding himself in something real after so much time apart. "You kept it," he murmurs, though the words are more for himself than for the dog. Rex shifts slightly, his head lowering just enough to rest against Ethan's shoulder. It is a quiet gesture, simple, but it carries the weight of every day that has passed between them. Ethan exhales slowly, his breath steady but heavy, as if he is letting go of something he has carried for far too long. Behind them, Claire steps forward without realizing it, her boots crunching softly against the frozen ground. She stops a few feet away, not wanting to interrupt, but unable to stay back any longer. "He never left," she says gently, her voice careful, respectful of the space between them. Ethan turns slightly, his eyes meeting hers for the first time. There is gratitude there, quiet and unspoken, mixed with something else, something that looks like understanding. He nods once, a small motion that says more than words could. "I know," he replies softly. His voice carries a calm that feels earned, not given. He looks back at Rex, his hand still resting against the dog's neck. "I should have been back sooner." The words are not filled with guilt. They are filled with truth. Rex does not react to them. He does not need to. For him, time was never measured the same way. Waiting was not a burden. It was simply what came after the command. Ethan shifts his weight carefully, rising back to his feet with measured effort. Rex stays close, moving with him instinctively, matching his pace without needing to be told. It is the same rhythm they once had, unchanged, as if the years between them were nothing more than a pause. Ethan glances toward the base, the empty buildings standing silent behind the gate. His eyes move slowly across the structures, taking in what remains of a place that once held meaning. There is no bitterness in his expression, no regret, just a quiet acknowledgement of what has passed. Then he looks back down at Rex. "We are not staying here," he says, his tone gentle but certain. It is not a command. It is an invitation. Rex tilts his head slightly, a familiar motion, one that carries the same quiet question it always did. Ethan's hand lowers again, resting briefly against the side of Rex's face. "You stayed long enough," he adds, his voice softening just enough to be felt more than heard. For a moment, Rex does not move. The gate is still there. The ground beneath his paws is the same place he has held for years. The air carries the same cold, the same silence, the same memory. But something has changed. Not outside. Inside. Slowly, almost imperceptibly, Rex turns his head away from the gate. It is a small movement, easy to miss, but it is the first time he has done it in years. Claire notices it immediately, her breath catching as she watches. Ethan does not rush him. He waits, just like Rex once did. And when the dog finally takes a step, it is not toward the gate. It is toward him. The first step is the hardest, not because it is far, but because it changes everything that came before it. Rex moves slowly, his paw pressing into the frozen ground with a softness that feels almost uncertain, as if he is testing something unseen beneath him. The space he leaves behind is small, no more than a few inches, but it holds years within it. The worn patch of earth near the gate, the place where his body had rested through storms and silence, remains still, unchanged, as if it does not yet realize it has been left. Ethan does not move forward immediately. He watches, giving Rex the time he has always been given, the time that was never rushed, never forced. There is no command spoken, no signal given, just presence, just trust. Rex takes another step, then another, until the distance between them disappears completely. His body aligns beside Ethan's leg, close enough that their movement feels shared, not separate. Claire exhales softly, a quiet sound carried into the cold air, her eyes fixed on the place where Rex once stood. It looks smaller now, emptier, like something important has just ended, even as something else begins. Ethan reaches down again, his hand resting briefly on Rex's back, fingers pressing gently into the thick fur. It is not reassurance. It is acknowledgement. Come on, he says quietly, his voice steady, grounded. This time, it is not a command to stay. It is something else entirely. He turns toward the truck, his steps measured, careful, each one taken with the awareness of someone who has learned not to take movement for granted. Rex follows without hesitation, his pace matching Ethan's naturally, instinctively, as if the years apart have not changed the rhythm they once shared. The snow crunches beneath them in soft, even sounds, marking a path that did not exist before this moment. Claire steps back slightly, giving them space as they pass. He waited every day, she says, her voice low, not expecting a reply, just offering the truth into the air between them. Ethan pauses for a fraction of a second, his head turning just enough to acknowledge her words. I know, he answers, and there is no doubt in his voice, no question, only acceptance of something that feels larger than either of them. They reach the truck, the engine still idling softly, a steady hum that contrasts with the silence of the land behind them. Ethan opens the passenger side door, the metal creaking slightly in the cold. He steps aside, giving Rex space, not guiding, not directing, just allowing. Rex pauses at the open door, his head turning once, just once, back toward the gate. The base stands exactly as it did moments ago. Empty. Still. Waiting for nothing. The wind moves through it, brushing against the fence, the buildings, the ground he once claimed as his own. For a brief second, it seems like he might hesitate. But he does not. Slowly, Rex turns back, placing one paw onto the floor of the truck, then the next, climbing in with quiet determination. Ethan closes the door gently, the sound final but not harsh. He walks around to the driver's side, his steps steady, his breathing even. As he opens the door and settles inside, his hands rest on the steering wheel for a moment longer than necessary. Not from uncertainty, but from understanding. He glances once toward the gate, then forward again. The truck shifts into motion, tires rolling over the frozen gravel, carrying them away from the place that held them both in different ways. Behind them, the gate remains, silent and unmoving, no longer a place of waiting, but a place that has finally been released. The road stretches ahead in a long, quiet line, cutting through fields dusted with frost and patches of snow that catch the last light of the day. The truck moves steadily, not fast, not slow, just enough to carry them forward without breaking the silence that has settled inside it. Rex sits in the passenger seat, his body upright but relaxed, his head slightly lowered as if listening to something deeper than the hum of the engine. The warmth inside the cab wraps around him, unfamiliar at first, then slowly accepted, like something remembered from a life that feels both distant and close at the same time. Ethan keeps his hands steady on the wheel, his eyes on the road, but every so often, they shift, just briefly, toward the dog beside him. Not to check, not to confirm, just to see, just to know that he is still there. The years between them do not disappear all at once. They linger in small ways. In the way Ethan's movements remain careful, measured, as if his body still remembers limits it had to learn. In the way Rex adjusts his position slightly every few minutes, not restless, but aware, as if part of him is still listening for something behind them. The silence between them is not empty. It is full of everything that does not need to be said. After a while, the base is no longer visible in the rearview mirror. The gate disappears, the buildings fade into the distance, and the road becomes something new, something that does not belong to the past. Ethan reaches over slowly, his hand resting lightly against Rex's shoulder. The contact is simple, steady, grounding. Rex leans into it without hesitation, his body shifting just enough to meet the touch. It is not excitement. It is not relief. It is something quieter, something certain, the kind of connection that does not need to prove itself anymore. The sky above them begins to darken, the pale blue giving way to deeper shades as evening settles in. A few scattered lights appear in the distance, marking the edges of a small town ahead. Life continues there, ordinary and unchanged, unaware of what has just been restored on this road. Ethan slows the truck slightly as they approach, the tires moving from gravel to asphalt with a softer sound. Streetlights flicker on one by one, casting warm pools of light onto the pavement. Rex lifts his head, his ears shifting at the new sounds, the distant voices, the movement of other vehicles. It is different from the silence he has known. But he does not pull away. He stays where he is, close, steady. Ethan glances at him again, a faint shift in his expression, something softer than before. "We will figure it out," he says quietly, his voice calm, not as a promise made out of uncertainty, but as a statement of something already decided. Rex's eyes remain forward, but his body settles more fully into the seat, the tension that once defined him easing into something that resembles rest. The truck turns onto a smaller road, lined with modest houses and quiet yards, each one holding its own stories, its own routines. The engine hums steadily as they move deeper into this new place, away from the years that held them still. Behind them, nothing calls them back. Ahead, there is no urgency, no demand. Just space. Just time. And for the first time in a long while, neither of them is waiting anymore. The house sits at the end of a quiet street, modest and still, with a small porch light glowing warm against the deepening night. It is not large, not remarkable, but it holds something the open road never could. A sense of place. A sense of return. Ethan slows the truck as he pulls into the driveway, the tires crunching softly over a thin layer of frost. The engine hum fades as he turns the key, and for a moment, neither of them moves. The silence inside the cab shifts again, different from before, not filled with distance or waiting, but with something new that neither of them has fully stepped into yet. Rex lifts his head slightly, his ears adjusting to the unfamiliar stillness. There are new scents here, faint traces carried through the air, wood, fabric, something lived in, something steady. He does not seem unsettled, just aware. Ethan exhales slowly, his hand resting on the steering wheel for a second longer, as if grounding himself before the next step. Then he opens the door and steps out, the cold air brushing against him with a familiarity that does not feel harsh anymore. He walks around to the passenger side and opens the door without hesitation. Rex looks at him, just briefly, then shifts forward, stepping down onto the ground with careful precision. His paws touch the driveway, and he pauses there, taking in the space, the quiet, the difference. The world is no longer wide and empty. It is contained, close. Ethan stands beside him, not rushing, not guiding, just present. "This is home," he says softly, the words simple, but carrying more meaning than they appear to hold. Rex turns his head slightly, looking up at him, then back toward the house. The porch light flickers gently in the wind, casting a soft glow across the steps. There is no hesitation in his body now, no pull backward, only a quiet consideration, as if adjusting to a reality that does not require him to stand guard anymore. Ethan steps forward, walking toward the porch, his pace slow but steady. Rex follows, naturally, his body aligning once again with Ethan's without being told. They reach the door, and Ethan pauses, his hand resting on the handle. For a brief moment, he stands there, as if acknowledging everything that led to this one simple action. Then he opens it. Warmth greets them immediately, not just in temperature, but in presence. The air inside carries a stillness that feels lived in, not empty. Soft light spills across the floor, illuminating a space that has been waiting quietly, much like Rex once did. Ethan steps inside first, then turns slightly, giving Rex space to enter on his own. Rex pauses at the threshold, just for a second, his eyes scanning the room, taking in the unfamiliar details, the walls, the furniture, the quiet corners. Then, he steps forward. No command, no hesitation, just a choice. The door closes gently behind them, the sound soft but final, sealing out the cold, the wind, the years that belong to a different place. Rex moves a few steps into the room, then stops, his body lowering slowly onto the floor. Not in exhaustion, not in habit, but in rest. Real rest. Ethan watches him for a moment, something easing in his expression that had been held tight for too long. He steps closer, lowering himself carefully into a chair nearby, his hand reaching out once more, resting lightly against Rex's back. The contact is steady, familiar, whole. Outside, the night continues, the wind moving across empty roads and silent fields. But inside, something has changed. Not loudly, not dramatically, just enough. Enough for the waiting to finally end. Morning arrives quietly, not with urgency, but with a soft light that filters through the windows and settles gently across the room. The world outside begins to stir, distant sounds of cars passing, a door closing somewhere down the street, the faint rhythm of a town waking up to another ordinary day. Inside, everything feels different. Still, grounded. Rex does not rise immediately. He remains where he is, his body stretched comfortably across the floor, his breathing slow and even in a way it has not been for years. The tension that once held him upright through cold nights and endless waiting has softened into something unfamiliar. Peace, though he does not name it. Ethan wakes in the chair, the early light catching the lines of his face as his eyes open slowly. For a moment, he does not move. He simply looks. Rex is there, not at a distance, not across a gate, but here, within reach. The reality settles in quietly, without the need for confirmation. Ethan leans forward, his hand resting once again against Rex's side. The contact is enough. Rex's ears shift slightly at the touch, his eyes opening just enough to acknowledge it before closing again. There is no need to get up. No reason to stand watch. The command that shaped his days has finally been released, not by words, but by presence. Ethan exhales, a slow breath that carries something unspoken out of him, something that has been held for longer than he realized. He rises carefully, moving through the room with measured steps, adjusting to a space that feels both new and familiar at the same time. In the kitchen, he pours water into a metal bowl, the sound of it filling the quiet in a simple, grounding way. When he sets it down near Rex, the dog lifts his head, this time not from alertness, but from choice. He drinks slowly, calmly, then settles back down without hesitation. No scanning, no listening for distant engines. Just being. Ethan watches him for a moment, something steady forming in his expression. Not relief, not joy in the way most would define it. Something deeper, something earned. Later, as the morning stretches forward, the door opens briefly to let in a breath of cold air. Rex follows Ethan out onto the small porch, his steps measured but unburdened. The street is quiet, a few cars passing by, people moving through their routines without noticing the quiet shift that has taken place here. Rex stands beside Ethan, his gaze moving across the space, not searching, not waiting, just observing. The world feels different when you are not holding on to something that has not arrived yet. Ethan rests a hand on his back, the gesture natural, unforced. You did good, he says quietly, the words simple, but carrying the weight of everything that came before. Rex does not react outwardly. He does not need to. The meaning is already understood. A breeze moves through the street, carrying the scent of pine and distant earth, a reminder that time continues, that life moves forward whether we follow or not. Rex turns his head slightly, looking up at Ethan, then back out toward the road. Not the old road. A new one. One that does not lead back to waiting, but forward into something unknown. And for the first time, that unknown does not feel empty. It feels open. Days begin to settle into a rhythm that does not demand anything from them. Morning light spills through the windows, soft and steady, touching the floor where Rex now chooses to rest, not out of duty, but because it is warm. Ethan moves through the house with quiet familiarity, each step no longer measured by caution, but by presence. There are no orders spoken between them, no commands shaping their time. And yet, they move together, naturally, as if nothing was ever lost. Outside, the seasons begin to shift. Again, snow melts into thin streams along the edges of the road, and the air carries a different scent, something lighter, something that speaks of change. Rex notices it, but he does not follow it. He does not chase the movement of the world anymore. He walks beside Ethan, sometimes ahead, sometimes behind, but always close enough to feel that steady connection that once defined everything they were. Claire visits once, standing at the edge of the small yard, watching from a distance before stepping closer. Rex sees her and pauses, his head tilting slightly, recognition settling in without confusion. He walks to her, not with urgency, but with quiet acknowledgement, allowing her hand to rest briefly against his fur. There is no need for more. She smiles, something soft in her expression, then looks toward Ethan. He looks different, she says gently. Ethan nods once, his gaze resting on Rex as he moves back toward him. He replies, his voice calm, grounded. Claire lingers only a moment longer before leaving, understanding that some stories do not need witnesses once they are whole again. Time continues, but it no longer feels like something to endure. It becomes something to live within. Evenings arrive with a quiet stillness, the kind that once felt empty, but now feels complete. Rex lies near the door sometimes, not because he is waiting, but because he remembers. Old habits do not disappear. They soften. They change shape. But they remain, not as weight, but as part of what came before. One night, as the sky darkens and the first stars begin to show, Ethan steps outside, the air cool, but no longer harsh. Rex follows, settling beside him on the porch. They sit there in silence, the kind that does not ask to be filled. The road in front of the house stretches out into the distance, quiet, unchanged. But it does not hold the same meaning anymore. It is no longer a place to watch. It is simply a road. Ethan rests his hand against Rex's back, the gesture familiar, steady. You do not have to wait anymore, he says softly, not as a command, not as a release, but as a truth that has already been lived. Rex does not move. He does not need to, because the waiting ended the moment it was answered. The wind moves gently through the trees, carrying the quiet of the night with it, and for a long moment, everything feels still in the way that only peace can be. Some promises are never spoken. Some commands are never taken back. And yet, somehow, they are still kept. Not in words, not in time, but in the simple act of never leaving, even when everything else does. And in the end, it was never about how long he waited. It was about who he waited for.